It was just another summer day in Brooklyn. June 14, 2012. The streets of East Flatbush pulsed with the rhythm of the city. Kids laughing and shouting on sidewalks, storefront speakers playing reggae and soul, the aroma of street food drifting through the air. School was out, the sun was warm, and life carried on like it always did. Then everything changed in an instant. At approximately 5:40 p.m., a silver Toyota Camry jumped the curb on East 38th Street, slamming into a wrought iron gate. The screech of tires gave way to the wails of bystanders and the thudding footsteps of NYPD officers in plain clothes, closing in fast. The car door was yanked open. A single shot rang out, and just like that, Shantel Davis was dying. She had no weapon. She was unarmed, and yet she lay bleeding, slumped against the car seat with a bullet in her chest. In 6 seconds, the entire encounter was over. 23 years old, black, and barely hanging onto consciousness, she was gone before an ambulance could arrive. The officer who fired that shot was Phil Atkins, a plainclothes narcotics cop with a long history of complaints. According to him, Shantel was struggling with him inside the car when the gun accidentally discharged. He claimed she was resisting arrest after crashing a stolen car, that she was dangerous, that he feared for his life. But in East Flatbush, a neighborhood already scarred by years of over-policing and police brutality, people weren't buying the official story. What they witnessed was something very different. Several neighbors claimed Shantel never had a chance to struggle. They said she was yanked from the car, slammed against it, and then shoved back in before the fatal shot was fired. One woman, watching from her second-story window, said plainly, "That cop had his gun out before he even touched her." There was no body cam footage. No surveillance tape from a nearby building caught the actual shooting. The only thing that remained was a lifeless body, a blood-stained car seat, and the noise, echoing in the hearts of a community that had seen too much. Who was Shantel Davis? To some, she was a suspect with a criminal record, out on bail for an alleged attempted robbery, driving a stolen car. The police used that information quickly, shaping the narrative in the media. But to those who really knew her, she was more than a file. Shantel was a daughter, a niece, a sister, a young woman trying to navigate a system that had never been built to protect her. She had grown up in that very neighborhood, caught in cycles of poverty and survival. Yes, she had a record. Yes, she had made mistakes, but she was trying to change. Friends say she had been going to church, looking after her sick grandmother, even applying for jobs. She was trying to put her life back together. But on that June day, none of that mattered. All that mattered was that she was black, in a car police considered stolen, and driving through a neighborhood where suspicion always came before truth. What happened after her death was predictable and infuriating. The NYPD closed ranks. Officer Phil Atkins was not suspended, not arrested, not even publicly disciplined. The district attorney's office said an investigation was underway, but gave no timeline, no transparency, no answers. And as that silence grew louder, the community responded. Protests erupted in Brooklyn. Not massive at first, but consistent. Local organizers, pastors, activists, and Shantel's family gathered weekly at the site where she was killed. They carried signs that said her name. They wore shirts with her photo. They chanted. They grieved. They demanded. Still, no justice came. The medical examiner's report only deepened the mystery. According to the autopsy, the bullet had entered her chest from an angle slightly downward. That contradicted Atkins' claim of a close-quarter struggle over the gear shift. It suggested she had been seated, with someone leaning over her when the shot was fired. Gunshot residue tests found no evidence on Shantel's hands. And the only fingerprints on the weapon. Phil Atkins. There was more. Atkins wasn't new to controversy. Before killing Shantel, he had been the subject of at least a dozen civilian complaints. Excessive force, violent arrests, fabricated reports. The city had paid out thousands in settlements connected to his cases. Still, he remained in active duty, armed, unmonitored, and unaccountable. The truth was becoming clear. Shantel Davis didn't die because she posed a threat. She died because someone with a badge and a history of violence decided she didn't deserve to live. By 2013, Shantel's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city. They alleged that Officer Atkins used excessive and unjustifiable force, and that the city failed to hold him accountable long before that tragic day. The suit languished in the courts for years. Justice delayed. Justice denied. In 2017, the city quietly settled the case for $2 million. No admission of guilt. No apology. No consequences. For the NYPD, the matter was closed. But for East Flatbush, for Shantel's family, and for the growing movement for police accountability, it was only the beginning. By 2020, the streets of Brooklyn and the world looked different. George Floyd's murder sparked a global outcry. Millions protested in cities across the US and beyond. In those crowds, another name was heard again: Shantel Davis. Her story reemerged in murals, on protest signs, and in chants. Her name was spoken alongside Breonna Taylor and Sandra Bland. Black women whose deaths at the hands of police had gone largely unpunished, largely unnoticed. But this time, people were paying attention. Shantel Davis became more than a local tragedy. She became a symbol, a young black woman killed in broad daylight by a police officer with a violent record, whose only punishment was early retirement and a pension. There's a cruel irony in how the system failed her. Not only did it criminalize her life, it erased her humanity in death. It reduced her to a case number, a statistic, a footnote. But thanks to those who refused to stay silent, her story now lives on, not as a closed file, but as a demand for change. Phil Atkins? He left the NYPD in 2020, retired with full benefits, never once charged, never once had to explain to the public why a 23-year-old woman with no weapon, no violent resistance, and no chance to surrender ended up shot in the chest. That's not justice. That's impunity. But something did change. Out of Shantel's death came pressure. Out of that pressure came policies. Community policing reforms. New oversight. Body cameras. Civilian complaint transparency. None of it brings her back. But it means she didn't die completely in vain. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's a start. Her family continues to fight. Her name continues to be spoken. Her death continues to haunt a department and a city that still hasn't made peace with the ghosts of its past. And maybe it never will, because when the system refuses to deliver justice, people have to carry the burden themselves. Shantel Davis should be alive today. She should have had the chance to rebuild her life, to grow, to heal, to make amends for her past, to become the woman she was trying to be. Instead, she was judged in 6 seconds by a man with a gun and no accountability. And yet, her story refuses to be silenced. In marches, in memorials, in courtrooms, and in voices rising from communities tired of burying their daughters. She is not just a victim. She is a symbol, a warning, and a name they will never erase. If this story shook you, if Shantel's voice, stolen too soon, still echoes in your mind, don't let it end here. Share this video, speak her name, demand justice, because in a world where truth is buried beneath press releases and forgotten files, we must be the ones to dig it back up. Like, comment, subscribe, and join us as we continue to go deeper into the truth, into the silence, into the deep. Thank you for watching.